So rapid fire. I'm really curious to hear your stance on peptides.
Oh boy.
I know it's going to be rife with skepticism.
Yeah, man. It's just starting to piss me off, really.
Yeah.
It's now like anybody that comes in could bring it up. Like obviously you would expect younger males going to the gym a lot. You'd expect it from them, but now it's like everyone.
Everyone.
And it's almost all bullshit.
Yeah.
I
I
don't know.
guess, right?
Yeah, I
All.
mean, depends which ones, right? Like GLPs are peptides, right?
Yeah.
We know what those do. They work great. But BPC 157, exactly the opposite. Nobody knows if it does anything at all. Everyone's taking it.
Yeah.
And nobody even knows if that's what they're getting because nobody bothers to test it and it's not regulated. So nobody knows what's actually in the vials that they're using.
Christoffen did like a quality control test on a bunch of his stuff that he ordered online. And it seemed like from the glance that I had at it, that it was all pretty high quality.
Oh, that's nice.
His suggestion was that he was getting what he was paying for.
That's at least some hope.
Yeah.
People are getting what they think, but it still doesn't tell us that it does anything at all.
I had a conversation with a client about it because she was like, what are peptides? I was like, well, big question to answer. And we talked about GLPs. It's like, well, Ozempic, right? Like everybody knows what Ozempic is. They don't necessarily know what it is, but they've heard of it. And it obviously works quite well. So there's an example of a peptide. And then she was talking about ones that are like better for your skin, better for your hair, and this and that. And then BPC was another one that kind of came up. And we were talking about what you're getting. And then we got into the conversation of early in supplements, like in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, when people were buying protein powder and they were laced with anabolics. It was like, oh, we're just, all we care about is selling this product. So we're just going to lace it with anabolics and people are going to get these insane results from taking whey protein. And Olympic athletes were testing positive, having no idea why. So you have to worry about that level of taintedness. So less about quality of, is it just like saline solution that you're getting, or is it laced with anabolics so that you are seeing significant result from taking whatever it is that you're taking that you ordered off of Temu?
Yeah, another potential problem for sure. Contamination with other drugs or just, you know, dirt, chemicals, toxic chemicals.
Yeah.
There's, I mean, definitely not the best idea, but yeah, I've even heard now of a doctor in Kelowna that's not prescribing them because you can't prescribe them, but he's like giving his patients a website to go to buy them.
He's like a GP. He's not a private doctor.
He's private.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think you'd be hard pressed to find a GP as well.
Oh yeah. GP wouldn't do that. I mean, obviously there's some outliers, but yeah, probably most wouldn't touch the stuff, right? But
yeah.
So that's, yeah, it's a little bit disappointing, but
while we're on the subject, because you have like a way deeper understanding what peptides are, chemistry, biochemistry, all that stuff. Can you give us a quick layman's rundown on what peptides are? And from a broad speaking point, all peptides.
Yeah.
What are they? What are they? What do they do?
Yeah. Peptide refers to a chain of amino acids that's a certain length. So smaller than most like proteins. I think the length is like 30 or 50 amino acids, somewhere in there. Anything that or under is a peptide. So a dipeptide is 2 amino acids, tripeptide is 3. And then these hormones and other chemicals that people are talking about are probably like in the range of whatever 5 to 20 amino acids in length. And there's like a whole bunch of different peptides, right? Some that the body produces as hormones. So the GLP-1 is one of them, right? So glucagon like peptide 1. And that's what those weight loss drugs are mimicking. They bind to the receptor.
So it's like a pharmacologically designed peptide to look like glucagon to your body.
Yeah.
And glucagon is,
peptide.
just for the listeners, what is glucagon? What does it do inside of your body? It's released endogenously, right? Like our body makes it, releases it in response to it. What does it do?
Glucagon is a hormone made by the pancreas, and it kind of works in opposition to insulin, essentially. So it is released when you're fasting, and it mobilizes glucose, essentially. So instead of storing glucose that's in the blood like insulin does, it upregulates glucose production in the liver. And then glucagon-like peptide is a separate peptide hormone that the body produces.
So it can be confusing to people who are just hearing about them because they get this term that they probably never heard before, peptides. But in reality, we are at least some of us or most of us are familiar with many peptides that we already talk about all the time, like insulin and, our hunger and eating hormones, insulin, ghrelin, leptin, glucagon, growth hormone. What are some other common peptides that people may be aware of, but might not know are peptides?
I think those are probably the big ones that people will recognize. Some of the hormones produced by the pituitary are peptides. So the ones that cause the release of some of the other hormones, ACTH, adrenocorticotropic hormone, is a peptide. Luteinizing hormone, parathyroid hormone. So other kind of upstream hormones involved in the release of the sex hormones and the other steroid hormones. And steroid hormones are lipid, so they're specifically not peptides or proteins, right? So distinct types, classifications of hormones or other molecules. So yeah, there's lots of peptides, lots of amino acid molecules. But the ones that are hot topic right now are like, TB 500, BPC 157, the growth hormone secretagogues. So like CJC 1295.
GRK, is that one? GRK?
GHRP.
GHR.
Ipamorelin. A patient of mine brought up GHKCU or something like that. I don't know. The list goes on. There's a whole bunch of synthetic things that I probably never even heard of. We could probably pull up a list here but anyway, like a lot of them have little to no data. Some of them have some that shows, like equivocal effects.
We should talk. Can you tell us the research that went into BPC 157?
Yeah, I think there's rodent data. I think a fair bit. I've only looked at like 2 studies in rodents. They have demonstrated benefit in rodents, right, with tissue healing and things like that. But yeah, no human data to date.
The one that I heard referenced was like a naturopath who prescribed it to like 12 or something patients. And then 12 weeks later, some period of time later, they called them like, how are things going? Like, oh, I feel great. It was like, works.
Yeah. Just the worst attempt at evidence, right? Like the laziest. It's better than nothing, maybe. I don't know. Actually, probably not. because it's
Oh, it's worse.
just giving people false hope, and it's uncontrolled. Yeah, it's bad. So yeah, I wouldn't count that. Yeah. But then there are some that do what they say they do and have, proved medical uses. What's the one of the growth hormone secretagogues is used for HIV patients to reduce abdominal obesity. So there's that, but that's like a far cry from whatever people think they're doing with it, right? It's like a very specific medical use case, and then they're getting it, and maybe it has that in it, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's contaminated, and then they, think it's going to make them younger and more jacked or whatever, right? So that's the kind of the chasm.
The point around contamination, that's at least the second time it's come up now. You mentioned that it's usually younger males who are talking about peptides. I don't have a good look into the general population because I just work in a CrossFit gym. But what would be your opinion on people who are stacking peptides? They're already taking anabolics or some sort of growth hormone or something like that. And then they're adding peptides to their stack and saying, oh, this works incredible.
Oh man. I guess to be clear, my problem is not with people taking drugs or doing, anybody can do whatever they want. It's when people come in and they think they're going to get this health benefit from this thing, and they just are more likely to actually get a negative health outcome than a positive one, right? That's the problem. Is I just hate like people doing basically just dumb stuff, but steroids work great. So those guys that are taking steroids, they're going to feel real good with or without those peptides. So yeah, they're going to be feeling good, and it's a bit of a delay to when you start feeling good. So if they started taking the peptides like a little bit after, they're going to start feeling good around when they take the peptides maybe, and then they're going to attribute it to the peptides. That's one possible scenario.
Or just the compounding effect of taking steroids or testosterone replacement therapy or something like that. You're going to continue to feel better and better and better. And then throughout that progression, you plug in your peptides. It's like, oh, this is why I feel so much better.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my max are going up. Yeah.
Yeah. You talked about like, well, that would be a control, right? If you were to put together some sort of study on it, you'd need to make sure that all of the people that are on it are not also on something else.
Yeah. And it is pretty clear that lots of people are doing multiple different things. Yeah. But, taking testosterone or other steroids, probably going to increase your injury risk, if anything. Probably not going to help you heal, but, your numbers in the gym will go up for sure. Get leaner too.
Cool. What's your closing statement on peptides?
I wrote this for the school community that I have. I wrote some of this down, and I said, if you're going to take some sort of pharmaceutical, take one that works and you know what it does. Right? So like, if you want the effects of growth hormone, don't get all these dumb peptides. Either take growth hormone or take like one of the secretagogues that we know works. If you want to increase healing, same thing, right? Like tissue healing, that. It's just like with the SARMs craze, like whenever that was 10 years ago, maybe, when people were going crazy about SARMs. And it's like, it's just a shitty steroid. Just take steroids. You know what they do, and they work really well. It's not good for you. I'm not telling you to take them, but if you're going to take drugs, take one that works. It's all like, if you're an athlete, it's all cheating. It's all the same. And if you're not an athlete, they all have health risks. So you're still getting the risk, but you're not getting the benefit potentially. So
Right? And with peptides, we don't really know what the risks are.
Correct.
Okay. What's next? And are not the rapid fire.
Do you want to hit the CrossFit thing first?
Yeah.
And then we can talk about like warm ups and fatigue later, like, because that's kind of like more about training.
Yeah, for sure. Which you brought this point up. This is something that you wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Kick us off.
Yeah. Definitely like a media thing. So it's like caveat, right? A lot of things that are present or prevalent online is like just not going to really matter in real life. But it's something I'm seeing quite a bit and hearing when I watch events too, like the announcers and stuff. The term CrossFit, the word CrossFit is used in all these different contexts without distinguishing between the like what they mean by it, right? Because it's at least three different things. CrossFit is a corporation.
Yeah.
It's a sport, and you could just sub in functional fitness for that word because it's a branded term, right? So maybe we just do, although functional fitness is just kind of clunky to say, right? CrossFit just kind of like rolls off the tongue better.
Yeah.
Maybe we need a new word. And then there's the like, everyday CrossFit gym classes, community
Like
kind of thing, right?
training program / methodology.
And yeah, and then maybe
And those two diverge quite a bit too, right? Because of the influence of sport and business.
Yeah. So then methodology potentially a four. So there might be even four meanings or more to that word. And then if you're kind of like saying CrossFit is this or should be this or whatever, you really should be distinguishing which of those meanings you're talking about, because like the methodology is very different than training for sport, right? Like going to a class and doing a WOD is absolutely not the same thing as elite sport training.
No.
So it could be part of it, right? You want to have a little bit of that or a lot of that involved, but it's just not the same thing. And then people going to a class and getting fit and getting healthy is not the same thing as sport either. Right? It's like that's two different worlds, and what those people are doing should probably be quite different.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen that come up on your radar much? That like mix up of the different meanings?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think what we get fed the most is sport related content, because that, like the cover page of CrossFit is, whether it's, like people doing functional fitness and they're kind of like influencers, or it's highlights from different events, or it's commentary on different events. And I think that's probably what's driven you to want to have this conversation more than anything. Is this season in CrossFit, more than any other, has probably been the most critical of the events and what's going on with the events, be it from the programming of the events to the coverage of the events, the quality of the events, all of that. People have been very, very critical of it. So if we're like talking about CrossFit, the sport, what they say is the fifth on earth, and that's a trademark statement. So the goal of the CrossFit season is to get people to CrossFit Games, where they crown the fittest man and woman on earth. But somebody has to pay for that. And so they need viewers and they need interest, right? And then that's where a lot of the criticism comes in, is we're doing these events inside of a building so that we can sell tickets to spectators, and then we don't test running or we don't test swimming, or we're unable to test long duration events because nobody wants to go and watch somebody do something for 60 minutes, right? Like what viewers want is excitement. We've seen, how many events have we seen so far this year have had some sort of lunge to the finish?
It's almost everyone now. Yeah.
And it's because it's exciting.
Yeah.
So the sport is in this, like, in between this rock and hard place of how do we test for the fittest and how do we pay for the test by engaging viewers so that they'll actually watch and we can fund this project. And then that leads into the training and the methodology, which is what most people are going to experience when they go to their CrossFit affiliate, which will then bleed into kind of the next point, which is the training and the methodology is the way that Greg Glassman designed it is exceptional, right? Like work capacity across broad time and multiple domains, all of the things that he said and the way that he programmed was fantastic, forging elite fitness. But it's almost across the board not practiced today. Nobody is doing static holds. Like the standard that they set was 2-minute LSAT hold. I don't think you would even be able to find a CrossFit Games athlete that can do a 2-minute LSAT hold.
I see.
And like handstands, pirouettes, levers, all of that stuff was part of the methodology. And that's what was going to build the foundation for sports. So he came up with his theoretical hierarchy of development: nutrition, metabolic conditioning, body weight and gymnastics, weightlifting and throws, and sport. And in his world-class fitness in 100 words, part of it is learn and play new sports all the time. So the methodology is meant to support life. And then as it evolved, it really grew into health. So what they talked about is they used to have this sickness, wellness, fitness continuum. And it was like, sickness is you're sick, right? You've got disease or you're decrepit or whatever. Wellness is the absence of disease. And fitness is an improvement in quality of life. And then they kind of stretched it out to include what they call health, which is fitness over time. So going from birth to death, what is your work capacity? And that's your health, fitness over time. And where it gets really blurry is people see the sport and they want to do the sport, but that's not what CrossFit was designed for. CrossFit was not designed to drive people towards the CrossFit Games. It was designed to improve their quality of life. And then you have the affiliate on the other side who, much like CrossFit HQ and the sport of CrossFit, needs to make money. So they need to deliver results. First and foremost, people come in, they want to lose weight. They want to look like Amy Kringle, or they want to look like Jeff Adler, Rich Froning, whoever, right? And I think CrossFit is going to be the thing that does it for them. So CrossFit has to, or the affiliates have to deliver these results that people are coming in with the expectation of, even though their program is not necessarily designed for that. And they need to make money. Otherwise, they'll be shutting their doors and nobody will be getting anything. So it becomes really, really challenging to separate all of these ideas of sport, methodology, affiliate. And then at the top of that, you've got HQ, which is kind of driving all the decisions that happen downstream.
Yeah. I think you can definitely make some pretty like easy distinctions to make the conversation or commentary more like useful. Right.
Oh,
So
yeah. With the simple injection of should. What
exactly.
should it be versus like what I described as what it is, the reality of the situation. But for certain, the should. What do you think about the shoulds of all of those things?
So the sport one is like, it's like a circular thing, right? It's the fittest on earth is the person that finishes first on a thing that changes every year. So it's like, what is fitness? So it's whatever the competition is that's always changing. So they're like defining fitness, but then they're assigning the fittest person, right? It's just kind of circular, which is fine, right? Fitness, the term isn't specific. So if there were a specific definition of fitness, then we could be more critical of what the events are. But if there's no specific definition, then it shouldn't be anyway. It's just whatever way they want it to be. And you could argue more or less variation, right? It's like, okay, if you're going to say somebody's really fit, they probably should be able to do, generally a few different things. But it's kind of got to be general, right? Like, you could easily just say that the High Rocks people are the fittest, but they're not as strong as CrossFitters. They've got better endurance. So which one matters more? There's no objectivity there.
The objectivity within the CrossFit methodology comes from what they term average power, which is nearly impossible to calculate. But, like imagine, so let's say a really simple example is I do a set of 10 back squats. I use 100 kilos. Next week, I squat to a lower depth, 100 kilos. I'm fitter because I created more power. I moved the same load through a greater range of motion over the course of my 10 reps. I'm fitter. And then you just kind of like broaden that, right? Wall balls. But then you start factoring in limb length, body weights, and all of that kind of stuff. And it gets really, really challenging. But if you just standardize the movements, hip crease below top of the knee, arms, reach, full flexion overhead, all of those types of things, you can kind of make a sport out of it with standardized movements. And it really comes down to how, not the power that you're creating, but the work that you're doing. And I think that CrossFit most of the time do a good job of balancing out the kind of discrepancies in people, right? Like Colton is always going to win the thruster workout every time, but he's going to suck on the rolling on the wall.
Yeah.
So I think it does balance itself out. It's got its standardized movements. It's got its definition of fitness, which is work capacity across broad time modal domains as measured by average power. And it's essentially just like either task priority, time priority, how much work can you do in a given time, assuming that all work is equal. If you squat below parallel and press this barbell overhead, it's the same for you as it is for me. And then average power. I think what's come under the most heavy criticism is the broad time and modal domains conversation. Is athletes are trending bigger, events are trending shorter, loads are trending heavier. And that's because that's where the interest lies.
Yeah. And in the specific case of the Open had like 2 workouts that were like pretty similar, same, same length, kind of a lot of interference. So yeah, like similarity, but yeah, definitely things are getting shorter, heavier.
Yeah.
I think, they could just have, and I don't have a problem with really any of the programming stuff. What I'm saying is it's not like CrossFit has its own definition of fitness and it's still kind of vague, right? It's not specific. So it is just whatever it is. And you can make your own definition. And then there's High Rocks and they have their own thing and they have a champion and they're super fit, right? They got really great endurance, but most of them are probably not very strong and they can't do gymnastics really. So it's just like different takes on it, which is fine. But yeah, there could maybe just be, like, in my opinion, a little bit more long stuff, a little bit more endurance work. And maybe they just do it, at least at the games or whatever, right? The big comps.
Mm-hmm.
maybe they do it like before spectators arrive after something like that. So they don't, it's, they don't charge them for it and they don't have to watch a really long, boring event. At the games, I think people probably wouldn't mind it, but because they're diehards, but yeah, I think it's just like not specific. Even in CrossFit's definition, it's still not that specific.
They used to be big on testing that stuff. Like when I was there in 2012, we did Pendleton 1 and 2, which was an 800-meter swim in the ocean, an 8K bike ride. It was a single speed mountain bike, mixed trail, mostly road, a little bit of sand, and then an 11K trail run, which is basically just like we ran up a mountain for a long time in the sweltering San Diego heat. That was long. That was like 3 hours. They did marathon row, which was very long, 4-hour time count on that one.
Yeah, that was long.
But they don't do that stuff anymore. You're right. They did the Burden Run in 2013, which was like, I think that was around a 90-minute event.
10, roughly 10K in 2020, I think. Remember
yeah, that's right.
They did it, and then he told them to go back.
2009, the last year on the ranch, they had a long trail run around 7.5K.
Yep. With the deadlifts right after?
Right. That's right into the ladder.
Yeah. Sam Dancer. Unforgettable.
He did the deadlift ladder. But in 2009, they just had a standalone trail run.
2009 trail run. Right. I wouldn't mind a little, but I think if they don't have it, it's still fine, right? It's just like, the sport, the CrossFit Games, whatever that is, just whatever it is. And somebody wins it and then they call them the fittest on earth. That's all good. But
I think a lot of the criticism comes from a lot of these qualifiers is some of them don't include any running at all. And some of them don't include an event over 15 minutes.
Yeah.
But then Sprague is going to be there. Ricky is going to be there. And all these guys can run. And their fitness in those shorter events is so incredible compared to the people who are kind of squeaking in that aren't running. And it shows in those lower power output events, shorter time domains. If you can run like a 38 or 40-minute 10K, you will express yourself very well in a 2 to 15-minute long workout if you have the requisite strength and skill to go along with it. But I bet you those people who are squeaking in don't have that, or the people who are missing out don't have that 38 or 40-minute 10K because they're just not fit enough.
Yeah.
You simply can't create that much power, even in those very, very short time domains, 2 minutes, where people are like, oh, it's all anaerobic. Like, no, you don't know anything about conditioning your energy systems. It's not. It's driven primarily by aerobic energy production. And you need an incredible aerobic system to be able to generate that kind of power over 2 minutes. And it's the fittest guys are winning those events. You shouldn't be confused by that. And then when they get to the games, test them.
Yeah. I think as a high level athlete or a aspiring high level athlete, you should be, and this goes back into like my, opinion of what fitness is or should be, is like those athletes that are trying to get there should be doing more than they might be tested on. They should have more training. And that kind of brings back the idea of like training for sport versus just doing a WOD, right? It's like, you need to be doing things that you may or may not be tested on, but improve these very basic kind of components of what most people would agree on is fitness, endurance, strength, mobility, power, right? In whichever definition you take of that, average or acute. So yeah, like those people should be doing a fair bit of running, even though the Open's never going to have running and quarterfinals probably not going to have running. Yeah. And, probably they should be swimming depending on how far they're going to get that year or where they live, right? They might be swimming at on the coast, but not in the, the Midwest. And then I think another component, which is the stuff that we've been seeing from John Wood, is like throwing. And I don't know what else he wants to be in the games. He wants like vert jump tests on a force plate or some shit.
Yeah.
But I think throwing is a little bit beyond the scope of what this is, right? I think throwing something is a little bit of a stretch of the definition of fitness.
I think it's far too much of a speciality
Yeah.
to be folded into the discussion. When we had a ball throw in 2011, it was a softball throw. And Rich played high level baseball. Asia Barto played professional baseball. I don't know if Asia was there that year. He was definitely there in 2012. I think he was. And Spencer Handel was like a freak athlete. His dad had something to do with football or like that, NFL. And they threw it like out of the field. And then Michelle Kinney, she also played D1 softball, and she just rushed out of it. And then there was all these other people who had like, they never grew up throwing, so they didn't know how to throw. And it's not like we don't know how to throw something. But when you grow up playing baseball and you play baseball until you're 20 years old, it's different. Your ability to throw compared to somebody like me who didn't grow up playing baseball. It would be no different than for us to be like, okay, we're going to have a skating event. It's like, sweet, I grew up playing hockey. Have fun sucking, you guys. Like, it's not a test of fitness.
So
I think a much better would be a very non-specific. Like in 2012, they had the double banger with the sledgehammer swing.
Oh yeah.
So you're just testing like creative rotational force production.
Yeah. It's a little less technically demanding, right? Like you can get the work done with many different techniques, and it's still a lot of repetition. So it's still, physically demanding on energy production and stuff like that, right? So that definitely makes a little more sense. Like if you include throwing, then you have to consider, you could take that, you could keep taking that to an absurdity, right? Like you could have free throws, shoot free throws.
Absolutely.
At the games. You could have like darts, like where do you, and they had, I guess they had the erg shooter last year. So I guess they kind of did dabble with what I think is a little bit silly, but
that wasn't at the games though, wasn't it?
Was it
Wadapalooza?
Yeah.
Which again, it's like, I shoot pistols. I've got a limited understanding of the mechanics of shooting pistols, but it's good foundational stuff. And I watch people shoot pistols. And one of the first thing that jumps out to me, everybody's shooting with one eye closed. It's like, well, if you shot pistols, you know that you shoot with both eyes open. So these people are immediately handicapping themselves by closing one eye. They don't know the fundamental mechanics of even how to hold a gun versus how to like get sight picture. Yeah. How to gain a sight picture or something like that. So if you were to just like take a weekend shooting course, you would have an orders of magnitude more advantage over these people just by knowing how to handle the implement.
Yeah.
CrossFit has its 10 general physical skills. And at the bottom are all these neurological ones: balance, accuracy, coordination. And they're like, oh, we need a test for accuracy. You're like, no, you don't. We're testing those things with snatches, clean and jerk, spring muscle ups, handstand walks, all of those things that require precision in movement is a test of accuracy.
Yeah. I think the word accuracy is definitely out of place in my opinion. I think it just doesn't fit in there. Accuracy is just not even the type of thing that those other, right? Like balance is a thing. It's a very kind of specific, like sensory and motor functioning that your body does. Accuracy is not specific. That means, you're doing the thing that you're trying to do. That's what accuracy means, right? It's like that could be in so many different terms. So it could be like coordination, right? If you're very well coordinated, you end up doing the thing that you're trying to do in general. So coordination kind of makes more sense, but yeah, accuracy, just like accuracy of what?
Yeah. I think of it in terms of like consistent movement patterns. Like when I coach the snatch, I try and coach people into a position and then say, to get back into that position quickly. And how accurately can you do that? And it's what you're talking about: coordination, reception, a little bit of balance, flexibility, mobility, all of those things go towards it. But the precision that you need to achieve is analogous to accuracy. And that's just kind of how I reconcile that being in the 10 general physical skills, because it's not precluded from being fit.
Yeah, you can't hit the center of the dartboard if you're
Yeah, it's easy to argue that it shouldn't be there. You just have to reconcile it against
Yeah.
what it should be instead. And I guess that's where we are, right? We're stuck on the should.
Yeah, it's easier to criticize, right? I didn't contribute to the world by coming up with all this stuff, but I'm criticizing it. You guys should shut the fuck up.
But it's worth the discussion, right? Because I think it gives us a deeper appreciation for those terms, because a lot of times they get repeated and repeated and repeated. And we're like, oh, that's dumb. It doesn't make any sense. But then you have a conversation around it and you're like, oh, you know what? Actually, I do think that's kind of cool. And they did the best that they could with what they had. And they used the term accuracy. Maybe they should have said precision. CrossFit adopted those 10 general physical skills from Dynamax anyway. So it's not like CrossFit needs to be saddled with all the burden of this mistake, but it could be better.
Yeah. And I think, talking shit is fun and that's, good enough reason to do it. But also like an analysis of these things, proper criticism is like the point is to like make things better and help people better. So that's kind of the point here anyway, right? So
absolutely. Yeah.
What do you think? That cover that kind of topic pretty well? The CrossFit?
I feel like it's worth diving into the training and methodology and the affiliates. Because like I said, oftentimes like affiliates need to make money, right? So we've got this methodology and this model of training, which is designed to create a broad, general, and inclusive fitness. We want to train all of these 10 general physical skills. We want to get people healthy by improving their fitness over time. And within that description, we've got things like long, slow endurance. And we've got gymnastic skills and body weight mastery and that kind of stuff. But at the affiliate, let's say you're running 6 classes a week. If 2 of those classes, one of them is a 10K run or 25K bike, nobody is showing up to that class. And then if the next one is handstand skills and L6 for 60 minutes, nobody is showing up to that class. And before you know it, people are going to be like, what am I spending my money on? I wanted to come and, let out some steam, get a good sweat, chip some tan, whatever it is. And that's not the environment where that's happening. So affiliates are stuck in this position where they, one, have to drive engagement. And then with that engagement, try and manipulate it such that it creates the physical changes that people are after. And sometimes you're stuck making a sacrifice where I know that this might not be the best program for everybody in this gym, but they're going to keep coming. And if I can keep them engaged for 3 to 5 years, they're going to be healthier than they would have been if they sat on their couch.
So how do you approach the class programming with that in mind? Do you kind of save a lot of stuff for open gym people that are putting in the extra work rather than putting it in the class and having people not show up because it's stuff that they're either scared of, they don't think they need?
I'll usually attach the unsexy stuff to sexy stuff.
Nice.
Hard interval days, get an easy skill-based warm-up where we're doing beat swings and hollow rocks and hollow holds, ring dip holds, like perfect push-ups, candlesticks, skin the cats on the rings, those handstand holds, that kind of thing.
Mm.
People are like, they can come and they can socialize and then they get their hard workout. And we do lots of dedicated strength days where they're just working on strength, whole body strength, which definitely deviates from the CrossFit method, which is like CrossFit has a heavy day, right? And the heavy day in CrossFit programming would be deadlift 7 sets of 5, building to a 5 rep max. And if we're talking about what's best for the individual, if you get someone who comes in and they've been sedentary for the last 30 years and they've been doing CrossFit for 2 weeks and the workout is built to a 5 RM deadlift. Even for me, we traveled to Hawaii and there was a lot of travel and my back was kind of fired up and we went to an affiliate and the workout of the day was deadlift 1 RM. And I was like, I'm just not going to do this. I'll just do like 8 sets of 3 at 70% instead.
Yeah.
So we do lots of strength days where it's like back squatted 7 to 8 out of 10, bench press, tempo bench over rows, those types of things. And then it just kind of like blends things out. So I take the methodology and I apply it within the constraints of the affiliate model. And I do the absolute best that I can to check every box in the methodology. And we do balance work as part of our warm. We might do a series where we stand on one leg and we do leg swings, swinging forwards, backwards. You're not allowed to use the rig or dowel to help you balance. Swing your leg forwards, backwards, side to side. We'll do drills where you stand on one leg and you imagine that you're in the center of a clock. And with your other leg, you reach out, you touch each number of the clock. And then you reach out with your hand and you touch each number of the clock. And then you jump to each number and back to the middle. And then we practice things like balance and agility. That way we do games. But I think it's the perfect model. It's an imperfect audience.
A varied audience. Before I forget, just quickly, did you watch the lecture that Stu McGill put out recently or any of the stuff surrounding that? Something I'll send it to you, but something we could touch on just kind of when you talked about lower back, heavy deadlifts after traveling, lower back stuff. He did a little presentation lately on his YouTube channel. So I'll send it to you, but we can chat about that later.
So the one that Squad University, he's been commenting on quite a bit.
Yeah. Obviously there's lots of opinions about it. So
and so there would be low back pain,
flexion, underload, discs.
Can they adapt?
Can they adapt? They can adapt.
Okay.
To some extent. Yeah. There's definitely a conversation there. And then just back to kind of your approach to affiliate programming. I'm just curious, what are the like types of workouts or maybe the specific ones that bring the most people in? What do you see are the busiest classes?
High rocks by a mile.
Just recently
Simple.
or for a while?
No.
Like what about 5 or 10 years ago? Was it still lots of cardio that brought people in the most?
There was a threshold where if it was too hard, people would shy away from it.
Mm.
But there's a funny thing in CrossFit where the workouts that look the hardest are rarely the hardest. It's the simplest workouts that fuck you up the most. Like 4 rounds for time or 50 air squats. That will cripple the best of you. But then you see some long chipper with like thrusters and pull-ups and burpees and that kind of stuff, rowing, double unders. It's never really that hard because you just redline too quick.
Mm-hmm.
So people don't really know how to assess what's going to wreck them versus what's not. But yeah, to answer your question, high rocks for sure. It's really popular right now. It's accessible. People enjoy it. They're never held back by anything. And then it would probably be from their strength workouts. People really like strength training. Unfortunately, I might upset some people with this comment, but I think it's because it's easy.
Yeah.
It's a lot more social, hard for the coach to be like, hey, get going. Like, most of the workout is rest. I track all along my workouts on my watch, and when I do strength training sessions, I always time my rest. So I'll do sometimes a 75-minute long workout, and I'm usually resting between 30 and 90 seconds between exercises. Very, very rarely do I rest more than 90 seconds. And at the end of a 75-minute long workout, I'll probably have 27 active minutes if I do a strength training workout, versus if I were to program a hard interval session, we would do a 20-minute long warm up of continuous effort. And then we might do something like 4 minutes on, 1 minute off for 4 rounds. So right there's 36 minutes of active time.
It's a lot harder.
It's hard.
Yeah. You definitely can make, potentially hard in a different way, but yeah, usually just straight up harder, right? Just spending more energy. You're working for more of the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think people struggle. It's not that they're lazy. They are unaware of their limits, where their perception of what is hard is much different from what their maximal is. And we're all guilty of this, you and me. I filmed a back squat a few weeks ago. I was warming up. I was okay, I'm going to go for this. It's going to be hard. I hit it. I was oh, that was pretty tough. Felt like it stuck for maybe a half second or a second. And I watched the video and it was you could have done 10 of those, man. So I think we all struggle with that. What is hard? And that's a huge reason why we as lay people just cannot comprehend what it takes to be an elite athlete. It's that ability to work hard. It's something that I try and coach people on. It's you need to train yourself to work harder. You need to practice the skill of trying, because we'll check out long before things get hard enough that we actually fail.
Yeah. And it's a lot easier to go close to failure on strength work than on cardio, longer duration stuff.
Oh yeah. But it's the point that I'm making is I think that people are so unaware of where that limit is. It's you might program something that's 3 to 5 reps in reserve or 2 to 3 reps in reserve, and they've got 10 to 20 reps in reserve. And the moment it starts feeling hard, oh, okay, that's good. But they're getting 1 hard rep per set instead of 4 or 5 hard reps per set.
Yeah.
That is still not even hard by my standard, which would not be hard by a world-class powerlifter standard.
Yeah. Yeah. I think a potential problem that arises there is that a lot of people just wouldn't be able to handle hard. So they're going they'll just get hurt, or they'll even if not close to the max, they'll still whatever. Maybe I'm underselling, but I think that's definitely the case with some people. It's just hard will beat them up just kind of too quick.
Yeah. And it's important to make the note too, that you don't need to.
No.
Just showing up is so good for you. It's incredible. Those lots of recent data about drinking alcohol, maintaining a healthy body weight, diet, exercise is the top tier. It's in number 1, and from 50 down is abstaining from alcohol and those things. Nothing comes even close to the benefits that you gain from engaging in exercise regularly. So if you're not killing yourself every day in the gym, it doesn't matter. You're fine. You're still going to be awesome.
Yeah. And you can still make progress for a really long time, right? It's not even just that it's okay. It's no, it's still going to be pretty good, probably for quite a while for a lot of people. And then,
especially if you're doing a program like CrossFit.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Where it's pretty much impossible not to work pretty hard. So, but yeah, for a lot of people that are just well, and this is going to be people that aren't doing CrossFit, because most people that I see in clinic are not doing CrossFit, but I would rather see them do more exercise than do the little bit that they're doing or a little bit more than they're doing really hard.
Yes.
I would rather see more total exercise,
More than
more their
hard.
health and longevity than a little bit of really hard exercise.
More total instead of hard.
In most cases, yeah.
What would you say is their current level of exercise then?
Like almost none.
Yeah. Yeah. At what
Yeah.
point does the threshold change? Like, let's say somebody comes in and they're like, I walk for 30 minutes, 3 times per week. You're like, okay, let's get that up to 6 days a week. But if I'm going to, like, let's say I'm going to Pilates 5 days a week, are you going to tell me then to work harder? Like, I need to do something
Yeah.
that's way
Yeah.
harder.
Yeah. Like, and in those cases, I'm gonna be like, okay, for the first case, like all they're doing is walking and maybe a lot of walking. It's like, okay, you need to lift some weights. It's like, you need to stress, the muscles and the bone a little bit harder. With the Pilates person, like same thing, or potentially like you need to do some hard cardio. So I wouldn't say like to the Pilates person, oh, just add a shitload of walking and be like, okay, time to like stress the cardiovascular system a little bit. Because most
Mm.
Pilates is probably not very, it'll be like some decent amount of like isometric strength probably, but probably not very much cardio.
There's a quote within the CrossFit literature, if you want to call it that, and I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's something like intensity is the independent variable that is most positively associated with results. And I think that is an accurate statement where you're saying people should probably do more. I think that people should work harder at what they do. They're not anywhere close to being able to achieve what they're capable of. So they should push to that limit. And they're also probably only engaging in maximum 5 hours of exercise a week. So they should be able to recover from it. It's like if they only sleep 6 hours a night and eat kind of shitty, they should still be able to recover from, it would equate to, if you're doing the true CrossFit method where workouts are short and intense, 5 to 12 minutes. So let's say you're doing 12 minutes, you're doing 60 minutes of intense exercise per week. I think that's what they should push for, is like
Yeah.
really getting into hard work.
Yeah. I agree once somebody's already doing, but like in the people that I see day to day, less than 10% do 5 hours a week. Probably less than 5% do 5 hours of exercise a week.
And it also begs the question, can they even?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I had a guy come in, it was his first day in the gym. I'd never met him before. He did a consult with the owner. And he told her that he was fit and he had all this training experience. He was early. So I was like, oh, hop on the air bike. We'll chat, get to know each other. Just going to shoot the shit a little bit. He's pedaling. He's 70 years old. Keep this in mind. He's pedaling at 35 RPMs on an echo bike. And in like 5 minutes, he's out of breath. He's sweating. He's looking distressed and labored. But immediately I'm just like, you're not a candidate for CrossFit. You're not going to get anything out of this program because it's going to be too hard for you.
Yeah.
So he needs to push himself hard, but relative to where he's at, he can't. Like if we're going to do a workout that's, thrusters and burpees, he just can't do it. He won't be strong enough or fit enough to sustain that level of power output. And it's just, it turns into like 10 seconds of work. He's basically going to do one thruster and then take a 1 minute long break. He could be way better off just trying to accumulate some volume, like what you're saying, right? Like if he could ride the Echo bike for 20 minutes at a continuous effort every day and then do a little bit of lightweight weight training, resistance training, he'd be way better off than trying to engage in a program like CrossFit, where he's just essentially drowning the entire time.
Yeah. It's the same thing we said when we talked about zone 2, right? It's like, can they do anything else? You could add a asterisk to that, can or are going to. And like some people can't, right? They're not, they're not healthy enough. They're brand new to it. They wouldn't be able to. Some people just won't. So,
Oh yeah,
like,
that's a good point.
or they think they can't. And if they try, they get discouraged because they get really, fatigued or whatever. So there's that kind of sub category of people that think they can't, or they just won't when you tell them to. So then they do nothing. It's like, okay, I want to see them just do more stuff to get more active. And then, if they buy in and they start to do it, then it's like, okay, let's make some of that hard.
Yeah, I agree. And that's comes back to what my point about the affiliate and how do we, when we got this guiding principle of getting people healthier, improving their fitness over time, how do we meet all of these people where they're at? And it becomes a very big challenge where you have somebody like you, for instance, who's working out in classes. How do I serve you and this person who can't ride their bike at a low intensity for 5 minutes without getting out of breath? It's a very, very challenging puzzle to solve.
Yeah, that is tough. But the CrossFit methodology is definitely a great starting point because of the scaling, right? It's like that's built into it. So there's, definitely one of the best things about it is just this, like, all these different options, right? We're always going to find something, scale it for everybody. Everybody does their version at their level. So yeah, it's definitely one of the things that really shines to me.
Mhm. Let's chase that idea now that we're on affiliates and talking about working out into warm-up strategies. That was what you wanted, right? Warm-up strategies.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's hear your warm up. I'm sure you've got lots of good, you've
Well,
been running
oh
people through 'em for
yeah.
a while.
Yeah. I use warm-ups. So there's I've been through phases of life with warming up. In my competitive years, all it served was get me going. I just needed to do something so that I could start to engage with my training. So I used to do this warm up all the time. I would do a minute of ski bike or row, alternating with a minute of some sort of mobility exercise. And I would do that for 20 minutes. And I would just have whatever a moderate intensity on the ski bike or row. So I might row at 2 minutes for 500 meters for a minute. And then I would do some cats and cows onto the skier, 205 for 500 meters, some up and down dogs to the bike. And I would just do I would progress from these global patterns, cats, cows, up and down dogs. And I would do things like chest stretch, like scorpion chest stretch, side lunges, hip circles, Cossacks, just random stuff like that. And that always got me warmed up and going well enough that I could just jump right into training so I didn't have to do it so much, or I didn't have to think about it. Now, what I do for my warm-ups is I'm aging and starting to have a lot more pain in my body is anything that's corrective in nature. I do that as my warm-up. So lately I've got some moderate arthritis in both hips. So I've been doing hip mobility, and jiu-jitsu is really hard on the hips. So every time that I work out in the gym, I do a hip mobility warm. We'll do a 90-90 series, some hip flexor strength, some adductor strength, some glute strength, some hamstring strength. If I'm going to be running lots, I might throw in some single leg calf raises or other types of things like that, knee over toe split squats, reverse Nordics. But anything that I know that I should do, the eating your broccoli type of things, I do that my warm up. But those are kind of my two go-to warm-ups. And then with my affiliate programming and sometimes with my athletes, I use skill sessions as their warm-ups. It's kind of like the eating your broccoli idea. You need to be doing it. Why would I give you some random warm-up that doesn't really serve a purpose other than to fill that blank in your program when I can give you something that's actually productive? So that's typically what I'll give to my affiliate programming and my athlete programming is skill-based warm-ups. What about you? What are your go-tos?
That's almost exactly even to the exercise. Single leg calf raises, reverse Nordics, big fan of those. But yeah, I just like to simplify things as much as possible. And I think in terms of a warm up, You could simplify it as get ready for what you're going to do. Right. So it doesn't have to be the same thing every time, nor it probably shouldn't. And it can just be the thing that you're going to do, but easier. Or it can be things that you need to do that thing well. Right. So, let's just take stretching, right? Because a lot of people just do like random stretches in their warm up.
Mm-hmm.
If that stretch is going to improve your technique, then it's going to be a great warm up. If it has nothing to do with the thing that you're doing, or it's going to like even maybe hurt your performance slightly, then it's a terrible warm up.
Yeah.
So like, the knee over toe lunge, awesome warm up for like a deep squat, right? Gets your knees feeling a little bit better, gets the ankle moving, and then your squat depth is like pretty much there on your first set. If your squat depth is really good and the workout is squats, it's like, okay, then don't stretch your hips and your ankles. You could probably just start squatting.
I have to make the argument that you could accomplish the exact same thing by just doing a few more mindful warm-ups of squats. Like let's say we're doing a back squat session. We could warm up with, groiners, hip rotations and knee over toe split squats and pigeon stretches. And you're going to feel a little bit more limber so that your first back squat feels good. Or you could do 3 sets of 10 3-second eccentric barbell squats with the empty bar, 95 pounds at 115 pounds. And that first set at 135 is going to feel as good or better than the first set at 135 following this, like, whatever you want to call it, fancy warm up of all these novel exercises.
Yeah.
But that mindfulness
Yeah.
is a very, it goes back to our discussion around like what people can do and what people will do. Mindful engagement in exercise is tough.
Yeah. And that's a couple of things. Like that point there is like another very useful function of a warm up is to like potentially shift your mindset, right? Like if you came straight from work and you're going to the gym, it's like, let's bring your focus to what you're going to, especially if it's really hard training, right? It's not just like an easy whatever workout. It's like, okay, you need to like stop thinking about work and start thinking about the really heavy shit that you're about to do. So the warm up can just be one of the benefits, right? It's just like anything that gets them focused, that's a start. But then the just start squatting example, that's definitely, that kind of, that take that you hear a lot with, like the barbell medicine guys, right? These like super evidence-based guys. Not that that's a bad thing. That's just like an easy way to describe some of the people that are almost kind of like very skeptical, right? They'll say, you don't need to do like any of the stretches and stuff. And it's like, yeah, you probably don't, but like, what do people feel better doing, right? That stretching is going to make them way more positive about the squat. They're going to have a better like expectation of the workout. The workout's going to go better probably, right? If they're like come in and they just start squatting because you don't need to stretch, and the first few sets their knees hurt, it's like they're going to probably some doubt's going to start to creep in. And, maybe they're not going to hit as high of a squat that day and this and that. So it depends. You definitely can skip a lot of this stuff. You don't need the foam roller and warm up. You don't need to stretch and warm up. But sometimes for some people, it's probably going to give them a better end result if they do a little bit of that first. But yeah, it's tough. Like it's hard to give up one prescription for that type of stuff. But one more note, just like you do with the corrective stuff, oftentimes I'll give people their rehab exercises as part of their warm up so that they just get it done.
To order your training in terms of the most important things, even if that order doesn't fit what, like periodization or classic strength and conditioning principles would teach us. So you can do those, like if part of your warm up is to do some bicep curls or bicep isometrics, and then you're going to go into some rowing intervals. Well, that might be harmful to your rowing intervals, but it's more important to your long-term development that you get these exercises done.
Yeah.
Put them first in the program, then the likelihood of them getting done is much higher than if you put them at the very end of the program.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if they're going to be pain-free sooner, if you do it then, they're going to have a better result long-term than if they skip that stuff or they do it later and then they kind of half-ass the workouts for a long time while they're not getting better as quick.
Or like you said, if they feel better, like if there's some sort of analgesic effect from the rehab exercises, and I come in, my elbow's really sore, but I do my rehab exercises and my elbow feels way better. Well, I'm probably going to clean and jerk better as a result.
Yeah. Agreed.
Some of the things that I do think are valuable in warm-ups would be things like practicing rate of force development. One of the things that I do a lot of, like if we're doing like a big deadlift workout, for instance, is we'll do like seated box jumps or like triple jumps, bounding jumps, those types of things, just to get people really warmed up to apply force aggressively, band resisted kettlebell swings. That also helps with coordination in terms of like bracing stabilization and intermuscular coordination, making sure that the right muscles are firing in synergy and sequence and the right muscles are relaxing at the same time, just moving through those patterns. People are not always super familiar with the movements that they're doing. So it kind of takes them a little bit of time to, get the feet underneath them. So I do think that there can be measurable benefits to warm-ups, even though the evidence-based people are like, they don't do anything. We measured before and after results with warm-up, without warm-up, all groups are the same. I do believe that they are valuable. And then another big one is like conditioning primers. There's like lengthy evidence that supports doing primers improves endurance performance. So that's a big one. If you're going to do any type of hard workout, you should be hot and sweaty before you start if you want to have a good result.
Yeah. It's, you got to be ready, right? Like if you're coming in, you're cold and you're going to try to put all out effort into some sprints, like you're not ready. Just not going to go well. So yeah, you got to be ready, right? And ready depending on the task.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's like psychosocially, like emotionally, you need to be prepared, and physically. And there are things that just take time to get there.
Blood's got to be in the working muscles, right? Like force, neuromuscular activation has to be like there, right? So for heavy lifting and yeah, there's things that need to happen if you want it to go well. And the higher the like level, probably the more it matters, right? It's like for every day, just going to the class, probably not going to notice as much of a difference as somebody that's really trying to get every last bit out of every session, right? Super advanced in their conditioning, really strong. It's going to probably matter more on the margins.
Which comes back to the point that you and I both made around the affiliate program, is that we're trying to serve two different populations. One person will be going very aggressively, one person not so much. It doesn't hurt that person who doesn't care as much and who won't work as hard to do a really thorough, involved warm-up. If anything, it's just extra work. And sometimes I view warm-ups as that. Like our workout's 12 minutes long today, guys. We need to do something. We're going to inject a little bit more fitness. So they're going to benefit from it to some degree. And this person who it really matters to is really going to benefit from it too. But nobody's losing in that scenario of putting in a well-intentioned warm-up into your training.
Yeah. And you're not going to fatigue your CNS either.
Probably not. No. So whoever's listening, if you're struggling with your warm-ups, try my 20-minute ski bike row mobility.
There you go. $100.
$100. Do you want to talk about CNS fatigue?
We could do it today, or we could just wait until we do a full episode on fatigue if you want.
Should we prime the audience with CNS fatigue and see if we can rustle some feathers and create some discussion?
Yeah, we could do that.
Yeah.
CNS fatigue.
Describe it.
Describe what it actually is or what people say.
Well, just describe what it is.
It is a reduction in the ability of the central nervous system to stimulate the musculature. So brain and spinal cord decreased, basically neurological function.
And what caused it?
Well, in our world, a shitload of work, right? A lot of something.
Right.
Whatever.
Training impulse.
Yeah. But I mean, you could, other things could cause it, right? Like disease could cause it, of course, or like, shitty sleep could cause it.
Yeah.
But then you would just call that being tired.
Just, yeah. And ultimately, how is it any different?
Yeah, it definitely, in a lot of times when people are saying CNS fatigue, this and that, it's like, you're just tired. Just say you're tired. Like you're not measuring, central outputs by the motor cortex. Like you're not measuring that. You just feel tired. It's fine.
If you were just tired, like let's say I did a workout that was 10 by 10 deadlift at 80% on our, right? Like this is just the world's hardest workout on. Or I was sick and I slept for 4 hours per night, 3 days in a row. If you were to test these symptoms or indicators of CNS fatigue, they would be the same. So how is it different?
Yeah. I mean, they might be
Right?
the same. I'm sure you could design two scenarios that are completely different, but have the same metrics, right? But the point is like, nobody's measuring it, and most likely it's peripheral fatigue anyway. So if you're tired, it's probably peripheral. So yeah, it's not central fatigue.
It definitely warrants its own episode because you start getting into performance fatigue, perceived fatigue, the psychosocial central governor theory, all of that, and its impact on what we perceive to be fatigue and how we're like applying these names to it. I think CNS fatigue, a lot of times, to me, what it is it's like either a way for somebody to like highlight how intense their workout was. Oh, I did these deadlifts yesterday and my CNS fatigue or my CNS is crushed today. Or it's an excuse for a poor performance. Oh man, today I was just dogged from all those deadlifts I did yesterday. The CNS, it's smashed.
I have a brain injury from the deadlift.
And a lot of the measuring so you said central nervous system, but it's funny because it's called CNS fatigue, but all of the measurements and all of the kind of like quantification around it are supraspinal. So it's all cortical. They're not even measuring fatigue at the level of the spinal cord. They're all of the measurements that are associated with the common term CNS fatigue are within your brain. And it's more like neurotransmitters and that kind of stuff. They do the like, MVC and twitch intercalation and that kind of stuff. But the fatigue itself, it's more commonly associated with neurotransmitter disruption, which just goes to show how lost we are when we use the term and how deep of a topic fatigue is. Because we don't even, like you and I can't even agree. And we know a lot about it on what it is. It's not that we can't agree, but we have different interpretations of what it is.
The studies that I put in the Google Doc, one of them used TMS, which is sweet. They measured like EMG, and then they measured, something at the level of the brain, and then they stimulated the brain directly with TMS. And then they measured maximal isometric force and whatever. So some of them are looking at a couple of different levels. It's pretty cool.
Which again confuses the discussion even further, because your central nervous system is your brain and your spinal cord.
Yeah.
But yeah, how does it fatigue? So we'll save that full discussion for hopefully next week. Hopefully I can make it through all of the research that I have in my doc.
Oh God, I saw how many you put in there.
That's
good. Dude, I already have like 15 tabs open.
There's going to be some skimming for sure. I think I already read all the abstracts. I'm pretty comfortable with what I want to get out of each one, but it's going to be a slug to get through.
Yeah.
Let's close out with teen adolescent athlete development.
Yeah.
I think what brought this to mind was I had a teen kind of approach, being like, what should I be doing at this stage in my development? And the first thing that helped me decide with what type of training to engage in with teens is their sexual maturity, which is basically like, are they producing adequate levels of testosterone to make gains in certain areas versus others? So can they build muscle? Like they'll always be able to build muscle, but not to an appreciable amount until they start releasing testosterone in significant portions. And that correlates with peak height velocity, which is an interesting index, which is basically how fast you are growing. So parents, if you're listening to this, make sure you have a growth chart for your kids, whether it be just on the inside of the laundry room door or one of those nice ones. But if you see when your child hits 12 or 13 or 14 or 15 or 16, that all of a sudden they go from growing a centimeter every quarter to 2.5 inches every quarter, that's the time to get on the weight. That's the best possible time for your child to be able to start adding muscle and engaging in hypertrophy style strength training, or strength training with the goal of hypertrophy. Until that point, your focus should probably be more towards creating a positive mindset around fitness. Like this, what do I get out of this? It's not a chore. It's something that I enjoy doing. I get to hang out with friends when I do it. I get to be faster. I get to be fitter. I get to feel good about myself. I get to be successful in something. That positive mindset around fitness should be priority number one. Things like maintaining mobility, especially during that peak height velocity phase. Kids are growing, their bones are growing, their muscles might not be, especially if they're sedentary, they might not be, or they're in fixed positions a lot. Their muscles might not be growing the same as their bones are. So maintaining mobility, tissue type and quality. So as you grow, the type of stress that you apply to your body, if you do lots of sprint work, you're probably going to develop with more type 2A, type 2B, type 2X fibers, or specifically type 2X fibers. If you're doing lots of long, slow endurance training, you're probably going to trend more towards that type 1 fiber type person. So thinking about breadth of fitness that you're trying to create for this person, don't engage in one specific activity, but think about broadness. The tissue quality, tendons, are they going to become elastic or are they going to become stiff? The neurological types and benefits of training, balance, accuracy, coordination, agility, those types of things. General spatial awareness, like can I move in certain ways and coordinate those movements? Those are the types of things that I think should be most important during teen development.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. A good variety of things, various sports or games, different activities, as well as in the early adolescence or childhood can be, technique work and, kind of easy weights and stuff. And then, when they start to develop, then it can be, you start to work work a little bit harder and start to actually try to build some strength and muscle and stuff like that. But yeah, good variety of skills and different movements and, different sports kind of accomplish that by default. So
Yeah. Avoiding early specialization. Don't put your kid in hockey year round when they're 10 years old, unless you want to be replacing their hips at 30 years old and
yeah,
knees, or you just don't really care about them even being all that good at hockey. Probably not going to be if that's all they do from the age of 10.
yeah, yeah. It's just not worth, there's always going to be those stories about, Tiger Woods, right? It's like playing golf since he was like 2 or some shit. It's like, that's not how you shouldn't model. That shouldn't be the model, right? It should be, you know, have them having fun and doing lots of different stuff and developing good habits and good relationships. And then, they'll probably kind of later on after all those experiences choose which one either they enjoy the most or are best at, and then they can start to specialize later, and that'll probably be better anyway, right?
And you mentioned good habits and good relationships, and that brings up food. With the popularity of macro tracking, I think it can be incredibly harmful to teens, boys and girls, because it's just not a long-term healthy solution for diet. If we're going to talk diet, I think your best bet is to work on introduction of various food types. Education around what each food type does, like something that Kat does with the kids all the time is, we'll be eating carrots. Like, oh, kids, carrots are really good for your eyesight, and whatever protein builds your muscles, and all these potatoes, they're good for giving you energy. That kind of education around food of like, it's not about body weight and body composition. It's about what do I get from eating this food? And how can we train them in a way that gives them a broad adaptability to stress? How can we feed them in a way that grows their palate so that they enjoy different types of foods, appreciate different types of foods, understand what they gain from those foods?
Yeah.
I see macro tracking in like 14, 13.
Yeah. It's not going to go well, probably.
Why? Oh, I got 60 grams of carbs from Honey Nut Cheerios. Like,
Yeah. That's not the place to start. If you're getting into bodybuilding later on or you're a competitive athlete, yeah, of course, like it's data and you know, track it and measure it and all that. But yeah, man, kids tracking macros that sounds awful. I'd never even thought about that.
well, and it's so easy now with MyFitnessPal or whatever tracking app you've done.
Yeah.
It's really easy to just plug your macros in.
Yeah.
Stay on a macro-based diet.
Of Cheerios.
Yeah. Instead of just like, here's a serving of protein, here's a serving of carbohydrate and vegetables on my plate.
Yeah. Have an amount that kind of fills you up pretty well and being very active helps regulate your appetite anyway, right? So that kind of goes both ways. You exercise lots, then you eat probably an appropriate amount more often.
Yeah. It brings me back to the CrossFit method. So world-class fitness in 100 words or less. It kind of follows the pyramid. And so the first statement within that 100 words or less is eat meat and vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar. Eat in quantities that support activity, but not excess body fat. And you look at that, it's so simple. It's hard to act on, like everybody knows these things, but it's nearly perfect in its prescription.
Yeah. It's an interesting place to start but yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. If people did that, they'd be healthy.
Yeah. I think eat meat is the part of that that's like definitely the best way to get protein, but definitely not necessary for fitness. or health. But it's, it's probably harder. I mean, definitely in modern, it's going to be harder to eat, probably harder to eat healthy without some meat.
Harder for sure.
Because people are going to deviate. They're going to get like weird processed,
Like Beyond Meat,
like meat replacement stuff, and it's probably going to end up being just not as good. So yeah, no, it's a pretty good starting point.
Yeah.
No sugar. I don't think that needs to be in there. But again, those are kind of, I'm nitpicking. No added sugar, right? Like don't add a bunch of sugar to stuff, which is fair.
Or don't eat candy.
Yeah, that's fine. That can stay in.
Oh yeah, but it says they do say to eat some fruit.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong. I do take a lot of issue with these like influencer types posting, like this is what I ate today, or this is what's in my pantry, and they'll like pull out chips and candy, and it's like you're doing 6 hours of exercise every day. Don't sell this to the people who are consuming your content. It is not realistic for them to be thinking, oh, this person needs candy.
Yeah.
Or to say things like, you need this, like you're doing these hard workouts, you need glucose, and candy is the easiest way to get it. You do not need it. There's a really good endurance guy, Canadian guy, though. I think he's Canadian, living in the States now, named Gordo Burnham. He runs a good Substack. He's written a few books. He is a Masters world champion triathlete, and the bulk of his diet is meat and vegetables. Like he's not crushing pasta and rice, meat and vegetables.
Getting the miles in.
Like you don't need sugar. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think, that's definitely a conversation there. But again, it's like there's a difference between being healthy and like trying to go as fast as you can on a marathon. Those are different. You definitely don't need to add sugar to your diet to be healthy, but I think there are cases for performance where you're almost certainly going to do better if you're having sugar.
Yes.
To fuel it.
It's your workout sugar.
Yeah. They just
have
like
to
do it if it didn't work, right? Probably.
It has to transition to that marathon record.
Oh, the toast and honey?
Well, it's that, but also just the sub 2 hour, 2 hour, right? 4 under the previous world record.
And they don't look tired when they're done.
No.
They look fine. Like, they don't even like take a knee or anything. They're just like,
they just walk it off.
Why not?
And toast and honey. What'd you have for breakfast? Toast and honey and tea.
Love that.
On a personal note, I was one of my 2026 goals to run a 45-minute 10K, 45:09 on Sunday.
Nice.
I strained my calf at kilometer 3. I was with Kat and I was like, fuck, don't quit.
No, don't even say it. Don't even tell her.
Don't bring it up. Nothing. You don't need excuses. Just got it out. When I finished, I was in a world of pain, man. I thought I felt good, and then I stopped, and it was like, oh, my quads and my calves and my hamstrings, everything was just lit.
How is she?
Zone 3.
Yeah.
It's like nothing.
He kept going for another hour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Should we wrap her up?
Yeah. Yeah, we can do a full episode on fatigue at some point.
Yeah. That'll require some investment.
Maybe we should give that a few weeks so we can read a lot.
I've got a few things. Putting together a conditioning course right now. So I've got a lot of reading to go along with that. And then we'll be able to handle fatigue. VO2 kinetics is, oh man, that's something to look into.
Before we go, just that really long review on carbohydrate intake and performance. We could get into that at some point too, but it's really long.
Like how many pages?
150.
Oh my
It
God.
has. I couldn't even get halfway through after multiple sittings. I started writing about it, and then I just like kept not finishing the article. So then I kind of gave up for now. Like I need to dedicate like a whole weekend to sit down, read it, and then go through the points. But it made some waves, but everything goes by so quick, right? Everyone forgets in 12 hours what the headline was. But it was a group of like anti-carb keto guys, and they did a review paper. Anyway, carbs and endurance training was the topic. So we could talk about that at some point.
Oh, and they were still anti carbs for endurance training.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Like even just the discussion around that world record and the gels that they use while they're doing that performance should put that to bed.
It's insane, right? So it's like, that's kind of one of the reasons why I gave up too, is just like, it's just not really a debate amongst actual sports scientists, right? Like these are guys that are not that. They're just like, they're low carb guys that write articles or whatever. It's like Dom D'Agostino, Jeff Volek, like they're just, but they made some really bad mistakes in the article too. Like I
did.
within the first like few pages, they made, to me, a critical error that shows they just don't understand the topic. And that, like, even I can identify it. It's like, that shouldn't be the case, right?
I feel like they're adjacent to the barefoot running people. It's like you're naturally supposed to run bare feet. You'll be faster. Meanwhile, nobody is even close to running fast in bare feet. Like, of course, shoes are going to make you faster.
Yeah, like these things make you better. Like it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Technology is it's a good thing. It makes things better. You can accept it.
Yeah.
Peptides.
Yeah. Maybe one day they will be proven to be effective.
Yeah. Well, some of them work. Some of them, who knows? All right, man. Good.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Cheers.